The Western media coverage of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine military conflict has revealed something startling about the West and how the West sees the rest of the world.
Now the unthinkable has happened to them. And this is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
Several global media outlets have been airing racist remarks quite casually, often referencing the fact that this conflict affects white Europeans and not people from the Middle East or Afghanistan.
I'm sorry, it's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles.
This is Ukraine's Deputy Chief Prosecutor David Sakwarilidze appearing on BBC. Note how he is emphasizing that the casualties of this war are Europeans with blonde hair and blue eyes. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Well, that rings a bell.
But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that.
Again, the stress is on how this war is different because these are European countries that are relatively more civilized than the usual conflict zones in the Middle East, Africa or Asia. US media personality Michael Knowles called the conflict the first major war between civilized nations in his lifetime. This is pretty much how the European colonizers saw the world. The Europeans were bringing the light of civilization to the uncivilized native, fulfilling the white man's burden. The Western press seems to have imbibed that narrative. Not to forget that Europe gave us both the world wars less than 150 years ago, wars which spanned 6 continents and devastated millions of lives. The very same world wars in which India had to send a total of nearly 2 million soldiers to fight in someone else's war. That Europe is relatively more civilized? Here's another take. The Telegraph published an article which said that this war is wrong because Ukraine is a European country and the Ukrainians have Instagram and Netflix accounts. The article further went on to say that this war is not in a poor remote country anymore. One would imagine that war in whichever corner of the world, be it in an affluent Europe or in sub-Saharan Africa, was a tragedy in equal respects. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It is not just the media coverage of the war that smacks of racism, but also how the Ukrainian refugee crisis is being viewed by neighboring countries. European countries like Poland that resisted taking in refugees from wars in Syria, Iraq and Afghanistan for years are now opening their doors to Ukrainians. And here's why.
Just to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. And that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white,
This is certainly not the first time that Western media has been accused of having a racist and colonial bias. But will it be the last time? One can only hope.